we heard about a few others that were trying to convert, food waste to animal feed, but on a small scale. And we looked at it and said, wow, this is something that's really interesting. If we put in place the right team to solve some of the bottlenecks that were preventing others from being successful, we could really create something interesting.
Just a quick reminder for you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better.
Hey, it's Ari. Welcome to another episode of the Made in America podcast. Today, I'm on with Jonathan Fife, CEO of Bright Feeds. Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Dude, it's absolutely my pleasure. I mean, we don't get a whole lot of manufacturing startups, so I'm really excited for our conversation. But it's the Made in America podcast, so I got to start off with my famous two questions, man. What do you make, and why do you make it?
So we have an industrial facility in Berlin, Connecticut that converts food waste into animal feed. The reason we're in business is because food waste is a huge environmental and economic problem. 1/3 of the world's food is wasted. So think about the cost of 1/3 of the world's food being wasted. And then about 10% of greenhouse gas emissions globally are caused by food waste. And when you look at the landscape for what exists to process all this food waste, there are a few other solutions, but there's a huge need, and we thought converting food waste to animal feed at scale was possible, and so launched the business to do that.
Wow. I mean, massive global problem you're trying to tackle, and so I'm really anxious to hear about it. Give me kind of the background. You said you just sort of got this thing launched. I mean, what happened where you were sitting down going, what problem I want to solve is the food waste problem in the world. I don't know how that, listen, a great time to find a business is where there's a big market and a big need. So you got big market, you got big need, but it doesn't really answer the question of sort of how, were you in the feed business? I mean, how does this happen?
Yeah, so I was probably as far away as you can possibly get. I was
you ate food, so at least that
yeah, exactly. I witnessed food waste, but I was at a college. I joined several financial firms in New York City, and I was working as a portfolio manager at a firm called Blue Mountain Capital, and we owned several different businesses. One
it's
of
like
those,
like a PE firm. So you see portfolio company. So
exactly.
You're working at a PE firm, and
Yep.
they've got a bunch of portfolio companies that they own that they're trying to
Exactly.
scale or whatever. And so you were working for them. Were you running portfolio companies or just doing reporting, buying? Where?
Yeah, so I was on the investment side.
Got it.
So the decision to whether we
investment committee,
want to
someone brings
invest,
you a
how
deal.
much, running, processing it through investment committee.
Yep.
And one of our investments was in a healthcare business that was run by Tim Rassius, who's my co-founder here at Bright Feeds.
I gotcha.
And
Co-founder, COO, president.
Yeah, president, COO, Bright Feeds, and we launched the business together. And we had heard about a few people. We talked a lot through that business. Over a couple of years, became friends, and he had, Massachusetts is desperately trying to solve, like Connecticut, their food waste problem, and he had done a lot of work with the state on various different businesses. He'd started several successful businesses over the years, and we had started talking about the food waste problem and what Massachusetts was doing to try to solve it. And we heard about a few others that were trying to convert, food waste to animal feed, but on a small scale. And we looked at it and said, wow, this is something that's really interesting. If we put in place the right team to solve some of the bottlenecks that were preventing others from being successful, we could really create something interesting. And so at first it was more like back of a napkin, just a concept. Over time we started learning more and more, started reaching out to engineers, putting together like some form of a team. And we thought we developed the capabilities to actually create a facility to do this. And we both at that point left what we were doing. I left the finance firm. Tim, handed over the reins on a couple of his other businesses, and we set out to launch Bright Feeds.
Do this thing full time.
Yep.
So I want to ask you a little bit about getting this thing started, because it doesn't seem like when I started my original business, I bought a computer and got rolling. I got to imagine it's a little bit more than you guys needed than that. So I'll ask you about that. But you said something about Massachusetts trying to solve the food waste problem. That just like a sentence I got to ask about. What does that mean? Like, why is the state even thinking about the food waste problem? Like, how is that registering?
Yeah. So right now, this is especially the case in the Northeast, but really all over, is that there is shrinking landfill capacity. And there's, I think in the Northeast, about 5 years of remaining landfill capacity.
Come on.
States are not
5 years?
5 years. States are not reinvesting in dated incinerators. And there's a story around why we launched in Connecticut around an incinerator closing. But because of that, the cost to dispose of waste has been increasing, over 10% a year.
Is that right?
Yeah, and it's going to accelerate. So it's this huge crisis. People don't really like to talk about their waste volumes,
Right.
But it's a huge crisis that people aren't really aware about. But the costs are going up. The second is environmental, where it's just a huge problem because 10% of greenhouse gas emissions globally are caused by food waste. So when you take those two things,
sorry, I'm going to interrupt, but
Yeah.
You're saying 10% meaning the waste itself, or does that include sort of the cost of the greenhouse gases that are made in like making the food, delivering the food?
just the waste. So waste.
So in addition to whatever we spent to make the food that we then threw away, right? Like talk about waste. You're saying that the food waste itself causes greenhouse gases?
Yeah. So food sits in landfills, decomposes, and emits methane.
Okay.
And it will sit and emit methane for 90 years. It just sits and rots in a landfill, forever. And so that creates a huge problem. And it's one that states are, it's gotten a lot more attention as a key contributor to climate change, as a lot of people have tried to figure out ways to combat, some of the risks that we face from climate change.
Let's go back to the thing you mentioned about, especially in the Northeast, but in general, sort of landfill issues. Is part of the issue that we're not making new landfills? Like, I don't know anything about the landfill problem, but
So first off, it's horrible for the environment. So that's, it's just not a good solution.
no one wants a landfill
You don't
in
want
their
to start
backyard.
there. It's at the bottom of the EPA's hierarchy.
The landfill is.
The landfill. It's the least preferable option.
Okay.
It's really come down to not in my backyard concerns. So who wants a landfill near them?
No, not me.
Yeah. So when you think about, there is some more capacity elsewhere in the U.S., but especially in the Northeast and many other areas, like you can't get a new one permitted.
Mm-hmm.
So capacity shrinks every year.
So, I guess I haven't really thought this thing through. So part of the solution there is if we reduce the amount of waste going to the landfill, we'll extend the life of the landfills that we have.
Yep.
So if you don't want to put it in a landfill, what are the other options to deal with waste? So you burning it, I guess?
Next most common is incineration. You're burning it. Again, it's not preferred either. And the plants required to do that at scale are incredibly expensive, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Okay.
So a lot of the incinerators were built 50, 60 years ago. And so states now are, they need to reinvest in incinerators to keep them going. And they're saying to themselves, do we want to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in something that's not a great long-term solution? And as they've been saying no, so for an example, the largest incinerator in Connecticut called Mira, which serviced 1/3 of Connecticut's waste, just closed.
1/3?
1/3
Of all the waste?
of all the waste in Connecticut just shut last year, right here in Hartford. As a result,
Why did it shut down?
it just was dated and needed reinvestment.
Same what you just said. No
Yeah,
one wants to
and
pay $100
old,
million.
and I think the decision was made not to make that large scale investment. And so as a result, Connecticut, like Massachusetts, but Connecticut was faced with this situation of what do we do? Now we're going to have to ship, 1 million tons of waste a year out of state to landfills and incinerators. So you're making the problem worse. And so you've had a tremendous effort here in Connecticut to try to figure out solutions. Food waste is about 20% of the solid waste stream.
Okay.
So 20% of what's being thrown in landfills, incinerators is food waste. So if you can target and take that out of the waste stream and use it for better purposes, you're freeing up a tremendous amount of space, and then obviously a lot of economic benefits in addition to the environmental associated with that.
So that pretty much closes the loop there. So that makes a ton of sense. So you guys had understood that there was a way to take food waste and turn it into something else usable.
Yep.
And you just saw that on a small scale, is what you said?
Yeah, we saw some others trying to do it, and a few of the challenges that people face to actually making it scalable was one, blending. How do you take an inconsistent stream of food waste and produce a consistent output? Because when you're selling animal feed, the buyers of that feed need to know what they're purchasing.
Yeah, they don't want to end up with a metal shard accidentally in the food.
Yeah, and that's first order problem.
Okay, that's a
second order problem is if they're buying something where you guarantee 15% protein, for example, you can't then deliver your next load at 5% protein. Then their formulations are off. So when you're selling,
thought about that, right? Because the waste comes in however it comes in. You're going to have to sort it to figure out how to mix it the right methodology to get the right amounts of proteins and carbs or whatever.
Exactly. So if you want to do it at a small scale, you can say, okay, I'm just going to take one small stream, and because I'm limiting myself to that stream, I'll be consistent. What we wanted to do is take in a large variety of food waste at an industrial scale to really make a dent in the problem. And so we needed to have systems in place and algorithms to actually look at and measure what came in, look at the nutrition, sort it, filter it, and blend it so that we're consistent. So that was.
It's not like the waste comes in with like a report out of what's in it. 17 egg shells, 4 uneaten, cups of macaroni and cheese. Nope. Like you don't have any idea.
No, it's waste, and people push it to the side, and that's
whatever.
That's the end of the story, and we have to deal with it.
Yeah, I told you pre-show, and a sort of full disclosure to the audience too. We got Blue Earth, I think is what it's called. We've been doing it for a while. We live in West Hartford. My wife signed us up for this thing, so we've got that green bucket, and like whatever we don't eat at the end of the night or whatever, it just goes in there. And I mean, week to week, it could be anything.
You report the protein on everything that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Yeah, this little sheet of paper. No, exactly. But literally, it could be anything, because it could just be we had takeout, we didn't eat the takeout. It could be like leftover this. Oh, we tried this new recipe, didn't like it. It could be fish. I mean, it could be anything anytime. Yeah, and you need to deliver something. I guess I didn't really thought about that, because the animal people, they want to have at least some, probably doesn't need to be to the level that humans get the sort of the ingredients box, but they need some level of confidence.
Yes, they need, you have to be within certain ranges. Mm-hmm. And so that was our kind of first order technology problem, is how do you create that and have systems in place to be consistent.
So you got to kind of sort it, right? Get out the stuff that I'm sure people put in there.
Yes.
That's not food waste.
Yep.
Step one.
Get out the contaminants.
Right. And then step two, I didn't understand the blending. So that's what the blending is. The blending is, and I don't know if it's too proprietary, but like how on earth do you even begin to do that? Like,
yeah, so it took us a very long time to figure out and put in place systems to do that. But the first step is measuring. So you have to know what's coming into your plant. And so we have sensors throughout the plant that measure the protein, fiber, the things that are important to animal feed buyers. Yes, that's step number one, is in a system in place to measure what comes in. Step two are algorithms that look at those inputs and say, well, if we blend it this way, here's the value of your feed. If you change it and you have more protein left, here's the value. If you had two different blends, you'd have more. So we have algorithms that move the facility, interact with our equipment to move the material throughout our facility and determine what blends that we produce.
Really? That's all. I mean, algorithms, I'm hearing computers. We don't have like people with clipboards doing math on.
Well, there are definitely people involved who are involved in the process for sure. And then there's a lot of technology that goes into it with sensors and our code-based system and things like that.
So where do you get the inputs from? Like, I mean, are you guys getting stuff like that green box that I have in my house? Are you getting stuff like that level? Are you like, where are you getting the food waste from?
Yeah. So we do work with Blue Earth.
Oh yeah.
But they're awesome. Everyone should send their food waste to them. But we're a lot of our initial customers. I mean, we built this plant that's that can scale. It's permitted to process 450 tons of food waste a day. So like 160,000 in a year. So think about 450 tons of food waste.
It's hard to imagine what that even looks like.
We really said if we want to, with Mira shutting down
a day.
I
mean, this is a ridiculous question. You might not have the answer, but like, how many tons are in the back of like a garbage truck? I mean, is this multiple garbage? I mean,
yeah. Like if your household bin is probably, 50 pounds, like 1/40th of a ton.
Okay.
So, it's, it is, so that's the kind of scale that we're set up. So we have like these big scale machines, and obviously like, you need to, when you have the type of facility, you have to feed it. So we,
literally. Yeah, exactly.
So we started with a lot of the big food manufacturers, and we have manufacturers that dispose of more than 10 tons of food waste a day.
A day.
And there we build custom setups. We have chutes, we have trailers or compact that go into servicing those customers.
So that makes a lot of sense. So I'm just sorry, let me process for a second
Yeah.
here. So if I'm making food, I'm gonna, just like if I'm making any other product, I would end up with like waste from whether I'm making something out of metal or wood or whatever. So if I'm making food, I'm gonna end up with food waste. And in the past, they would just throw that into the dumpster.
Yep.
And that's to go. I like this idea, solve the big problem. So go there, and you guys say, hey, we'll take it.
Yeah, we'll come in and we'll use one of the dock doors at the industrial plant. We'll build a chute. So you'll have one chute for your trash, and then right next to it is a chute for food. And then that chute leads to a compactor or a trailer, some mechanism where we can ensure it's isolated and source separated. And then we'll take that back to our plant and process it. We also have haulers and others that will basically just come bring us food from routes they do and from smaller customers. So we said first, let's start with the big customers that have a lot of waste, start feeding the plant, and really tackling, this problem at a large scale.
Mm-hmm.
And we've noticed as we've been working that a lot of the problem is also at the restaurant level. And
yes.
So we're now working with Blue Earth, others, USA Waste, others who who will go out and service some of the restaurants and smaller food producers to bring us the
100%.
colleges.
I had a friend that worked at a bagel shop in high school, and I just remember I was shocked at the number of bagels. Like maybe you could sell some as day old, but after that, there's just out in the garbage.
It's incredible when you're in our plant. You see what comes in. It's like there's so much food waste out there.
So what's in it for, if I'm a food manufacturer, what's in it for me to go through the, I don't know if hassle's even the right word, but what's the benefit to me of going and getting Bright Feeds? I have a second shoot. I got to train my people. What's in it for me then, other than maybe feeling good about helping this problem? What's in it for me from a business perspective to do it? Yeah. Is there a value? Yeah.
So step one is cost. That we felt when we were underwriting, doesn't make sense to launch this business. Can it work economically? We did not. There are policies in place that are getting more stringent on requiring people to separate because of the environmental impact. But we felt like, very strongly, especially during COVID when we were launching the business, that there has to be a attractive cost proposition for businesses and others to separate for it to really take hold. Mm-hmm. So with our systems in place, we can sell a high value animal feed, and it all starts there. And because of that, we can pass through those savings to the businesses and others that we work with. So in many cases, we'll charge nothing or pay for material for things coming in our facility. So
versus them paying to get a hold of it.
Versus them paying to get rid of it. So, as the cost to dispose goes up by 10% more every year and just kind of is runoff inflation, we're moving the other way on paying or, taking in stuff for free. Because a lot of our profit comes from the animal feed that we're selling.
Got it. Right. Because you're not really in the waste disposal business. You're in the animal feed creation business.
We're in the animal. Yeah, we are in the animal feed creation business, and our input happens to be food waste.
Right.
But that's our commodity.
Right.
But it all starts from cost that we'll go in and we'll say, they may look, say, Bright Feeds. Okay, well, I have a million different business priorities, like my waste. Why am I gonna? Then you say, wait, we'll like pay you for your waste. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe we want to sit down with you guys.
Yeah, that does. Well, believe me, if someone wanted to pay me for my garbage, I'd be really interested too. So is it helpful when you starting with food producers? Is that helpful to understand the stream a little bit easier? Because I sort of think about two different streams. If I'm going to say like Pillsbury, which I think has a facility not too far from you guys, and I know they're only making like these 4 SKUs or whatever they make. I know I'm mostly getting, wheat or whatever, bread or whatever they kind of waste off, versus on a residential stream or even maybe restaurants, it's way more of a mixed bag,
Yep.
right? Did it help to launch by starting sort of with a more homogeneous, maybe I don't know if that's an overstatement, but more homogeneous stream, or am I kind of off?
Yeah, no, you're right on. It is food manufacturers. They produce the same things, day in and day out, pretty much. And so your waste stream reflects that. It looks, you can have events here and there, but it looks pretty consistent. So when we think about, what blends we can produce, we have to have systems in place at the facility to adapt if we get things that are unexpected. But it helps when you're dealing with food manufacturers that, supply consistent material.
Listen, when you're getting a business off the ground, starting off as simple as possible.
Start as simple as possible. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone who's listening who's looking to start a business,
God.
huge lesson there.
Yeah. Complexity will kill you.
That's right. And things get complex enough when you think they're simple, let alone starting off complex.
Oh my God.
How did you get your first? Well, let me ask you this: when you think about starting, so you're in that, you sort of almost have that like 2 customer business. In a lot of businesses, let's just take a regular feed business or whatever. You buy the inputs, so you're the customer, and then you're selling the outputs. But you kind of have to sell your input customer a little bit too, and you have to sell the feed customer. So my first question is, where did you start? Did you start by getting a feed contract, or did you start by getting a waste stream?
Yeah. So we started by getting the waste stream.
Okay.
Because we wanted to start with feed customers and say, let's line up, we want to line up on the feed side, and then we're going to line up. And we had this vision of like everything would be balanced and and like we would open up and have the input set and the output. And then everyone said like, okay, you don't have a plan open. Like, we're out there like, what do you mean you don't want to contract with us? And they'll come back to us when you have like a real business.
Exactly.
So the animal feed side, we really had to have a product to show them. They said, send us the lab analysis. We're like, what are you talking about? So we had to have the inputs. So we went in and started, hustling around trying to get, some food manufacturers. And we started simple, like what are some streams that are simpler, that are maybe a little bit more commoditized. We're able to then say, okay, here's the analysis that we can produce, start small at heavy discounts. And then as we gained more credibility and people saw, okay, our systems really are differentiated. We can be consistent. We're reliable. You can charge real market price. And then that allows us to invest in other things and get more input. And it kind of, has snowballed from there.
So what was when you think back, and not that it's even that long ago, but I bet 2 years feels like an eternity right now. What was sort of the biggest hurdle to get the first person to say, yeah, we'll try Bright Feeds to feed our animals? Like, what was that? What was the?
I remember the first pitch we did. We didn't have a website, so we were.
You guys are awesome. I love it. I wish I was at that meeting.
Yeah. So we were. So Tim Rassius. He brings a lot of the energy, but we're at this meeting. We're saying all the things we can do, and they're like, okay, where are your business cards? We're like, what? And then like, what's your website? We're like, oh, it's coming. And we're trying to pivot, but we relied heavily on relationships.
Yeah.
So, we had people we knew in the area who introduced us, that gave us, enough credibility where we were able to get some warm handoffs, and a few people, said yes.
Took pity on you,
Yeah,
maybe.
and we had, and the people who introduced us were like, "What do you mean you don't have a website? Like, go out and put together your, put together your website, then come back."
Exactly. So, Wix.com, 10 minutes, got a website.
Exactly. So we're like, oh man, we really got to professionalize a little bit.
Yeah.
And then we've come a long way since there.
Yeah, I bet. That's awesome. Listen, I think every great entrepreneurial story has like that, like kind of sort of crazy beginning, because you almost, I think, have to be a little ignorant, or maybe a lot ignorant, to even do it. Because I mean, I don't know, almost every entrepreneur I talk to, like myself included, like if I knew everything that I needed to know, I might never have started.
100%. It's like we learn new things every day. I mean, we're still early, obviously, but I always say, like, there's a reason that you don't exist. There's a reason. There's a million hurdles, and that's why. I guess we had enough excitement over the concept to, like, to just feel like jumping in. But you're absolutely right.
I was going to pivot a little bit here, but and maybe look to you because of your background from running portfolio companies and making those investments, you may have some insight on this. But I think one of the reasons that it's so important for a CEO to have great vision and share that vision with the company and help them see what could be as opposed to what is because every great thing needs to come from somewhere. Like it doesn't exist today. It has to be existed. Someone has to be able to see and communicate that vision and believe in it to actually make it a reality.
Yeah, I think like the ignorance is helpful in that.
100%. Yeah.
So,
do you see the end point? If you saw all the hurdles and pitfalls you had to come over, you might never start the journey.
Yeah, to Tim, me, and then Scott, who who brought us to Connecticut. As kind of our third co-founder. We all we saw the end point. Of the technology exists, that the customers were excited because the feed customers also can save some money, that we'll sell them at a discount compared to the real nutritional value of what we're giving them. And so they were interested. And then the waste customers, we can charge them less. So, the pieces were all there, but all the complexities,
putting it all together,
in between of putting it all together, we when you're starting out, you think less about those. And then the first you launch the business, those things hit you.
Yeah. Well, listen, problems are like, laser guided munitions, man. They don't miss. No. Problems do not miss. They'll find you.
No way.
So now that you're you kind of got the idea, like 2018, 2019, you started like thinking about it.
Yeah.
You launched in 2021.
Yep.
And, I'm going to venture to say it was a pretty big departure, right? I mean, you live in Manhattan, went to like an office, probably spent a lot of time on, phones and computers and email. And now you've got a facility in Berlin, Connecticut with like sorters and lasers and computers and trucks coming in and out and like, food garbage coming in and got to be converted. I mean, it is like your worlds have got to be totally different.
Yeah, it is. It's like it is so different, and like I haven't worn a suit in like 2 years. We live and breathe food waste, and it's just the day structure, the traveling, it is completely different than what I was doing before.
How are you finding it? Like now that you've got some time at it, how are you finding it?
Yeah, it's great. I love it. I always, when we invested in the companies that we owned when I was at Blue Mountain, I always enjoyed when, I could dive in and like play a role at the company or help out and do things that would move those businesses forward. So I felt for a while that starting my own, starting a business and being more on the operational side were things that I wanted to do. So it was lucky that this all, was able to come to fruition.
What sort of lessons, now that you're kind of on the other side, what are some lessons that you would share with or think about like budding entrepreneurs or people who want to get started? Like what are some things you think about now that you wish you knew before you kind of started?
Well, I'm still learning a lot of things that I wish I knew. No, but
Me too.
I think I think surround yourself with people who are different than you and have different skills. Tim Rassius. He has a totally different. He's much more operational and all the logistics to the business, and he started several businesses, and so without partnering with him, this business never would have gotten off the ground. So the two of us really, and then Scott, with his, he also has a financial background, but a lot of experience as well. And then we've been hiring engineers and, our first plant manager who, we hired someone, stronger than, our size at the time. So really just, I think, surround yourself with people who are different, and have kind of a different way of looking at the world.
Yeah, no question about that. So as you guys are like starting to scale the business, are you finding that finding more inputs or consistent levels of inputs is a challenge?
We're scaling up pretty quickly. I think the cost savings have really helped there.
On both ends, because I didn't really realize this up front, but so it sounds like you're helping people who have the waste to get rid of it at a lower cost.
Yes.
Even potentially making some money off it, but either way, right? So that's a big swing.
Yeah.
And the feed people are getting a lower cost product for the same level of quality. So it's really about providing an economic value to both ends of that stream.
That's right. Exactly. And so we're, for us now, it's really about hiring and making sure operationally that as we continue to grow, we don't lose fact of the sight that like we have to service our customers. Mm-hmm. And we're reminded if there's a delay or things that happen, like we're new and early, and it's not a given that our customers will be with us forever. Mm-hmm. And so when the biggest challenge is we're always balancing the input and output, and making sure, that we're guaranteeing the right number of, animal feed tons each week, and that we have the technology systems, backups in place, redundancies, so that we can handle unforeseen events. And so we've been very systematic about moving forward in kind of smaller quantities, not because we don't want to grow more quickly, but because we can't lose sight of the fact that we have to make good on our promises on both the input and output side. So it's an exciting time for us. We're hiring. We've just hired multiple people who on the build our own engineering department. We hired Lakshmi Wordham to build out our marketing group to help us think about new markets and new facilities and land. We just are looking for land in Massachusetts and Southern Connecticut. So a lot, but we have to make sure we have the team and the systems in place so that we're fulfilling our basic promises to our customers.
Yeah, listen, you can grow yourself right to death, and there's no question about that. So you got to be careful. So as you think about the strategy to move this thing forward, sounds like it would be a part of the strategy is not sort of one central facility, but move the facilities more. I don't know if smaller is the right word, but more smaller facilities that would be closer to where the waste is collected and then processed and then send the feed where that goes. Is that sort of the strategy?
Yeah. So we're going to have, we want to replicate what we're doing here. And in some areas, it may be a bigger facility, some may be a small, depending on the amount of waste that exists. Mm-hmm. But, waste is more local than the animal feed. So animal feed, it's dry, it's ship stable. You can send it long distances. The animal feed, the food waste side it's a local business.
Yep.
So we want to make sure that we're opening plants and can help, hopefully bring our solution to other states.
Does that pose a challenge when you think about scalability? Because you have all this land and capital equipment investment in every location. Actually, I'm sure you figured that out in the business plan. That it makes sense.
Yeah, no. The good thing about our business is we can, we'll pay for some material, but we can get paid to take stuff in, and then there's a high value to the animal feed. So economically, it's an attractive proposition relative to what it costs to build a facility. So we look at it from the perspective of this is needed, infrastructure in every state. Each state could use multiple plants.
Yeah.
And so we're and there's something like 60 million tons of food waste out there, a year in the U.S.
60 million?
60 million. So our plant in Connecticut can service about 160,000 tons. So it's large scale, 450 tons a day, 160,000 tons a year. But when you look at that relative to the size of the problem, I mean, forgetting about international, just in the U.S., there's a need for these in, we think all over the country. So we're focused on, continuing to build out our technology, and where are our next several plants going to be?
So when you think about the long-term business, and sorry, I'm going to geek out business a little bit, but
Yeah.
are you looking at the technology as a competitive advantage, the first mover advantage, and sort of being able to sort of build that moat, little combination? Like, how do you think about, getting, sounds to me like you're trying to get a dominant position in the food waste recovery industry.
Yep.
You've got a thesis of how to get there, and you're moving.
Yep.
So is it the technology that's the lever? Is it like I said before, first mover advantage, or both? What are you thinking?
Yeah, it really both. It's there is, and we've learned this, even though we think we have a more competitive solution to others out there, you learn that there's just a huge first mover advantage. People don't want to change their habits.
No.
So it's, we think that is a critical piece. And then the second is clearly our technology. Without the technology and the processes, you can't open up these facilities. And we've, patent, we have 2 patents now. We have other things that protect some of that technology. And we think that's vital to scaling.
So sounds like this is an investable business. Is there investors? Is this like bootstrap? Like, how'd you guys?
Yeah. So at first it was, a little bit bootstrapped. As we've been growing, we've, increased the institutional investor base. We actually just got an investment from Connecticut Innovations. So they're the kind of venture arm of the state of Connecticut, and it's exciting partnering with them because they launched this new climate fund with the goal of how can we back innovative businesses here in Connecticut that solve first order Connecticut challenges, then obviously hope that they grow more broadly. So Connecticut has this massive problem because of this Mira incinerator closing. And Connecticut Innovation saw that, and they said, they got to know us. They really dug in on our technology, how it works. They felt like, through their investment, we can further, invest in our technology and our processes and our algorithms, our sensors, to bolster our competitive advantage to first here, solve the Connecticut problem, and then, take that to
Build it from there.
Take it out. Yeah. Take it. More broadly.
That's all. Jonathan, super interesting. Just one more quick question. I know we're out of time, but just one more quick question I wanted to ask you is, a lot of the manufacturers we talk to talk about workforce as a challenge. And I wonder, as you guys have been growing, you talked about engineering, you've talked about plant managers. I mean, you guys need all the same stuff, right? That all the other manufacturers we talk about have, and you even have some of the newer stuff, right? Which is marrying the physical world with the technology world, and you're doing all that. How are you finding your ability to attract and retain talent?
So far, it's finding difficult. Retaining so far, we've had success. I think we spend a lot of time bringing in a very strong person to run the plant. We tried to create an environment that it's like our plant. We can have all the the marketing tools and our brochures and things that we do to get customers in the door and the promise. But at the end of it, the most important thing is what's going on at the facility every day. Mm-hmm. And we have to recruit and retain, the top people to run the plant, or else nothing else matters. And Tim, who's, started several businesses before that, was very adamant on, who we hire, what we pay, how we structure those things to make sure that we're keeping and retaining the people at the plant who are actually,
Making it all happen.
making it all happen.
Yeah, like I said, I wondered at first, like, oh, maybe it doesn't seem sexy to go work at a food waste processing plant.
But to answer your the mirroring some of so it's funny on when I was at the finance level, it was I was working on some like models for valuing, at the time mortgage security in businesses and kind of taking those tools, but to like industrial plant. But if you come to our plant, it's just it's like any other industrial plant, but just with sensors and algorithms and things layered on top. But we have all the same problems as any other industrial plant.
Exactly right. Yeah, but I wonder if like it just might be cool to be able to say, hey, listen, like we're solving this like major problem, and one thing to really help a business thrive is to get people rowing in the same direction and seeing a mission and being willing to get behind it. And it's hard to find a business that has a mission that you can paint a picture about something that's really being a part of something bigger than yourself, and what's sort of bigger than solving, a worldwide, climate crisis and waste crisis, not to mention, food insecurity. So it really can help, on so many different levels. So it's kind of an impressive mission, and that's got to be helpful, I would think.
Yeah, that's I think to retaining people, that is huge. Whether it's people at the plant, or some of people at the corporate level, it is everyone is behind that. If we succeed and we scale, that we're helping to solve a major problem, and it's allowed us to, I think, recruit people above our weight, because they kind of see the vision and see what hopefully we can accomplish in the coming years. And it's just like when you're dealing with like the in the weeds problems every day, it really helps to think about the long-term mission.
Absolutely, man. Well, we're definitely wishing you the best of luck, man.
Thanks
I know
so much. Yeah.
I know it's a slog, dude. We've all been there. But you just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and you just hope to be a little bit better today than you were yesterday, and a little bit better tomorrow than you were today. And with that and a little bit of luck, everything works its way out. I'm gonna flip us over to rapid fire round of questions, and I'll pepper you with a few, and then we'll wrap it up. You ready?
Yep.
All right, man. Red Sox or Yankees?
Yankees.
I felt like Upper West Side New York guy. That was coming.
Yeah. I see your wall. I wasn't sure if I needed to
would survive.
lie to you a little bit.
Yeah, well, we're slashing your car tires right now. Yeah, it's over now. iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Sports car or SUV?
Sports car.
Staycation or exotic destination?
Exotic destination.
What's your favorite? Do you have a favorite business book?
Yeah, I think, I started with the like Warren Buffett value investor books.
Yeah.
As, when I was in the finance world, and I read, recently, this book by Robert Caro called The Power Broker on Robert Moses's life, building New York and things like, and some of the infrastructure. And it's not really investing, but it's, I thought very important to, anyone trying to create a business that relies on infrastructure.
Yeah, something new. If you had to do something other than be CEO at Brightfeeds, and it could be anything in the whole wide world, what would you spend your time doing?
Trying to play competitive tennis.
Ooh.
That would, unfortunately, I wasn't, gifted enough to
no Andre
take
Agassi,
to the next level.
No.
But, I'd be trying.
You'd be trying. Fair enough. What's something, Jonathan, that you learned early in your life or early in your career that you think's helped propel you to all the success that you've had?
I think, my parents have always tried to instill hard work, that less focused on the outcome, more on work ethic, whether it was from tennis or school. It was always their focus.
That's right. Working hard never fails. What's something that you learned later in your life or later in your career that if you could go back and tell young Jonathan and he'd listen to you, you think it'd make a real positive impact on him?
Keep things simple, especially, try to be the smartest guy in the room with a lot of complexity and, other things. And I think, the simpler you are, simpler that you make things, the better off you'll be.
Amen to that, man. Amen to that. Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on, man. Wish you all the best. And
thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by Compass MSP.
Thanks for listening and spending some time with me today. My goal is to help build a strong manufacturing community, and it would be impossible to do without all of you.